Hi, Jerry.
Hey, Heather.
How's it going?
So good.
Great. All right, that's enough small talk. So,
So
I
glad we got that out of the way. Woo!
I'm excited. I feel like I have a trend developing lately where I have a plan for my notes and how they're going to go,
hmm
and then I start working on them and I squirrel over to something and then I'm like, well, that'll be a few episodes away because now this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
And that's what happened. That's what happened with this.
I loved getting your little updates via voice memo of this happening. It was so fun. I'm so excited to hear where it took you and where it takes us.
You're gonna have fun. It's gonna be
Okay.
fun. I'm looking
Cool.
forward to it. I've had Mormonism on my list to
Oh
do.
my God. Yes. Now I understand. I have my coffee here.
I'm drinking coffee. This
And
wasn't
so does
planned.
Heather, and we're like sipping on our coffee, and she was like, "It'll all make sense
It's all
soon."
gonna make sense that it's so perfect that we're drinking coffee. Well, but here's the thing. So I've had Mormonism sort of as a whole on my episode list, brainstorm draft to do. And I
Yes.
can't tell you how many times this is why I use an erasable pen because I've erased it and I've put in the topic instead and I've pushed it somewhere else. And that's happened like week over week over week because it's just so big
Yeah.
and there's so much. And I've tried to figure out, like, well, but the purposes of our podcast isn't just to like attack religions, so I can't just be like, we're going to talk about Mormonism and that's a
hmm
topic for the podcast. So my
Totally.
original intention was actually to cover a case that sparked why I texted you that day and said we should make a podcast about that sort of intersection.
Lovely.
And that's where I started.
Okay.
And I was like, well, okay, but I have to lay some groundwork first because we can't just jump into, the belief system without that sort of context.
hmm
And it was so much and it was so big that before I even got to the case itself, I had like 15 plus pages of notes and I went, I have to change something.
Okay.
So I decided to pivot and we're actually going to be discussing in depth-ish Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism,
Yes, I know. Yes.
and his polygamist cult.
Even better than I could have imagined.
I I want to be careful and I want to give some sort of disclaimer here that Jerry and I intend to be as ethical as possible when we cover this stuff. It's why we don't get into
hmm
gory details because they're not necessary to tell you if someone was murdered, right? We don't have to get into the sensationalism, the extremism. It's not it to us it leaves an icky taste in our mouths and so we don't do that.
hmm
With that said, we also try not to come off as super duper judgy. While sometimes we may find some levity or make some jokes, we're not like a comedy podcast, right?
I mean,
We're
even
not
though we are
trying.
just like so
We're
funny.
naturally very funny
Yeah.
people. But so as I'm going through this, I was like, this one's tricky for me. And so this is more of me just saying that if you are listening to this and you're Mormon, first of all, I would go ahead and click off because nothing I say is going to make you happy. But I am not making fun of you or your beliefs if you are
hmm
Mormon, because that's not my business.
hmm
All I'm doing is covering something that I find very interesting. I'm supporting it with facts and research. You do not have to agree with or support anything I say. And so that's just sort of my overall disclaimer. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be rude or hateful or whatever,
hmm
but I'm still going to come off as biased, and I recognize that.
Okay, great. And even if you, and maybe like it could be even like if you are morbid, maybe you do want to listen. Maybe
I mean, I would encourage it if you're open minded.
that's what I'm thinking is like actually you might benefit the most from
It might be really
knowing if
good.
you don't already know these things. You know what I mean?
Well, and I will tell you right now that if you are actively in the Mormon church, you do not know these things because
Oh,
they have gone out of their way to hide it. There is now a tiny little footnote on the Mormon website that does allude to this, but it is very like, you got to know it's there to look for it. They make it sound very vague and I mean, it's probably not that bad kind of thing. And so,
it's really not that bad.
yeah, and we're going to get into all of that.
Okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Wow. I am. Let me get my seatbelt buckled.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So, Mormonism, officially known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or LDS, is rooted in the idea that early Christianity didn't just evolve over time, but it was lost. It was something that needed to be found and like returned to its original state. Followers believe that after the original apostles died, the true teachings and authority of the church actually disappeared. And this period is often referred to as the Great Apostasy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. In the 1800s, here comes a man named Joseph Smith, who by all accounts looked to be a dark-haired, maybe light-eyed guy, but of course is depicted in current paintings as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man. But he came along and he claimed that God restored that original church through him. So period, full stop already. We've heard this before, right? I'm the one that knows the real truth. I'm the one that can lead you to what you need. I'm the answer to all your problems because I am more special than you and I have a direct line. This comes up a lot in what we've talked about in our 30 plus episodes. So from the perspective of a Mormon, this is not a new religion. It is a restoration of the original one as it was always intended to be.
Okay.
Mormons do believe in Jesus Christ as Savior, but their view of God himself is a little different from what you might hear in more traditional Christian denominations. And this will actually sound familiar to you because it kind of came up in episode 1. Instead of the Trinity being in 3 persons, they believe God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost are 3 separate, distinct beings, unified in their goal, right? They have a shared purpose, but not in form. And we talked about this with our Way Down diet and Gwen, because when she made that statement, it was very divisive to her followers because, that's not Christianity, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of piece number 1 that sets them apart. Another major part of this faith, especially as Joseph is concerned, is ongoing revelation. Are you familiar with this concept?
I don't think so, or I don't know. If I am, I didn't know this was the name for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically what this means is that, let's say you have the Bible and let's say you even have the Book of Mormon. Let's say you already have these 2 things in front of you. It is not signed, sealed, delivered, and done because Joseph, in this case, as we're talking about him, could basically get a new download, right? He could get a new revelation from God and say, oh, the app's just been updated. We can do something different now.
Okay.
And I bet you can already see how some seeds can be planted, that would be very convenient for him as a man to say. So this meant that God didn't just speak in biblical times and then go silent. He continued and continues today, revealing truth through, at that point, Joseph Smith specifically, and now through specific leaders that have come after him. And because of that, they don't rely on just the Bible. That's sort of like piece number 1.
Okay.
Because as everyone is familiar, if not with the actual book itself, then probably with the Broadway play, they also follow additional scripture called the Book of Mormon, which they believe is essentially another separate testament of Jesus Christ and part of that restored truth. So to me, I think of it as like when you download an audiobook and it comes with like a supplemental PDF. It's like that.
It's just like a resource guide.
Yes. It's like you have the Bible and that's super great and really handy. And then you also have this equally as ginormous book that has like other important concepts.
That's so good.
So again, to level set, when you zoom out, Mormonism is built on the idea that truth was lost. And thanks to Joseph, it was found again. And that belief of restoration, of prophecy, of this direct communication with God is where things can get a little bit dangerous. And, people can interpret it. And that's where originally I was going to come in with a Mormon-related murder case. But instead, there was just too much good stuff happening here. So in this case, that interpretation is very, very important to remember throughout this whole conversation that we're going to have. So first, let's do a little bit of groundwork with the Book of Mormon itself.
Great.
It is, like I said, honestly, just as large as the Bible, as far as I'm concerned. But according to the tradition, the Book of Mormon tells the story of ancient peoples who lived in the Americas. That's like white guy LOL 1. And I have to, this whole episode is dedicated to my friend Tiffany because she is, I always say if she was on Love on the Spectrum, she would say like special interests are Mormonism. It would be like, that's the whole special interest. She knows everything about this. It's amazing.
Yeah.
She's actually part of my cited sources.
At Tiffany.
At Tiffany. Because I reached out to her and I said, okay, was it just the Americas? Nobody else? This is just a book of white people? And she said, well, it depends on which scholars and historians you ask, because of course it does.
Also, like ancient Americas. That's not white people.
Well, in this context, it is. Because according to some folks and some interpretations, it may also include parts of Mesoamerica, which is more what you're talking about, and Central America. But largely and safely, generally speaking, it's the Americas. And it describes their prophets, their wars, and spiritual teachings.
Okay.
It includes an account of Jesus Christ appearing to these people after his resurrection.
In the Americas.
In the Americas.
Okay.
And so in their belief system, it's another testament of Jesus. It's not a replacement for the Bible, but it is a concept. And sorry, I have to lizard brain for a second because thinking about the resurrection of Jesus. Did I send you that reel the other day of that girl that was trying to manifest a nose job?
Oh,
and someone responded.
My God.
Someone responded and said, honestly, Jesus was probably the best manifester because that's probably how he came back. And this was a serious comment.
Yeah, it
and
was.
The original girl was like, oh, you're so right. That makes so much sense. And I was like, and too much internet for today.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I will be logging off.
I am logging off. I am throwing my phone into the river.
I spent a lot of time in that comment section, and it was so deeply, I would say, depressing at best, that I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to go touch some grass. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know who wasn't touching grass? Joseph Smith. Because do you know how he came up with the Book of Mormon?
Tell me.
I mean, do you have any guesses or have you heard anything?
I have, and I don't remember. It's like one of those things.
You willfully put them away.
I stored it in a front file, and then as soon as I realized I didn't want that anymore, I just dumped it. But as soon as you say it, I'll remember. But yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this is where things get a little unusual. We veer off the path a little bit because, again, up to this point, I mean, someone coming up and saying, I can talk to God, not that special, Joseph, honestly.
I mean,
take any cult. We've done that. We've seen it. We've done it.
Been there, done that.
But this part's fun because, and again, I'm not trying to make fun of you if you believe in this, but I am making fun of the concept because I'm sorry. I am human, and that's just, again, my reminder disclaimer. Joseph Smith didn't just say like, ooh, I found this book. He said that he was chosen to translate a hidden record through divine means. And again, that's this restored religion he's looking for. And so he says in 1823, he was visited by an angel named Moroni, who told him about a set of buried golden plates.
Yes.
The plates were allegedly buried in a hill near his home in New York. They were going to contain ancient writing, and eventually he was allowed to retrieve them. And he was instructed to translate them into English. Now, how do you think that our main man Joseph here was able to translate an ancient language? Do you have any guesses, Jerry?
I feel like it could be anything from a wish and a hope to a dream.
What about a rock? In fact, what about a rock inside of a hat?
That's right. There it is.
And what about some special glasses?
Okay.
I
didn't know about the special glasses. I've heard about the rock. I don't know what you mean by hat, and I have not heard about the glasses.
I wish I had props for this. I really do. There are two main methods described in
I have a
historical
pink
accounts.
cowboy hat up above
That
my head.
actually,
That would
can you
be.
just grab that in a pebble
Yeah,
and you can act
yeah,
this out?
yeah. I will.
Okay.
Wait, no, really? Should I?
No, for real.
Okay,
You should.
okay, I'll be right back. Okay. You're gonna die. This is so funny.
Okay, so you already have glasses on. We're going to pretend that those are special ermines and thumbins, which are like sacred spectacles. So that's what you already have on.
Okay.
And you're going to place that rock inside the hat.
Okay.
Perfect. And now you're going to put your whole face into the hat.
Like this.
To block out any light. Yes, perfect.
Can you still see me?
And now you're going to dictate what appears to you by doing that. Are you getting any special messages?
I'm getting that I'm having a hard time breathing.
Can't wait to use this for the thumbnail.
I am feeling very I'm feeling very close to myself. I'm feeling very like I should have put gum in my mouth. And the rock is not really giving me any kind of divine messaging.
It's not telling you anything. Well, I guess it's probably because it wasn't the seer stone, which is a specific kind of rock. So you can come out of your hat now.
It is from a New Jersey beach, so that might also be part of the problem.
Yeah. It's telling you about like Jersey Shore.
I actually faintly hear Snooki complaining about something.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
But you've done it. That's the real actual thing.
I am getting teary-eyed, so maybe I need to like try it a second time and see if I get anything.
Maybe something happened. Maybe it was coming through to you. So as Jerry so beautifully acted out, if you're watching the video of this, he would place a seer stone, which was like a small rock, into a hat.
From New Jersey. Maybe from New Jersey. Who knows? New York is close.
He was from New York.
Yeah, close enough.
He would put his whole face into the hat to block out any light, and then he would dictate whatever he said appeared to him. And of course, he also used these special spectacles, which to me looked sort of like opera glasses. And they were like magic glasses. And through those tools,
from Zenny. That might also be my other issue, that I don't have the right glasses on.
Your glasses aren't magic enough, and your stone is from the Jersey Shore. So, as outrageous as this sounds, even the church today acknowledges the seer stone method in its historical essays. This is not like a funny thing that somebody made up. This is truly him going, yes, now I can translate this ancient language thanks to this hat thing I just did.
Interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. I'll try it again.
Well, and you may not have to, because he had the seer stone and he said he was the only one who could read the plates.
Oh my God, Heather, why didn't you tell me that before I tried?
So, of course, you also don't get a second shot at that for real, because the plates ultimately did have to be destroyed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But since this time, fragments of the plates have been viewed by historians and linguistic scholars, and didn't say anything about anything that he said they said. But maybe it's just because they didn't have the abilities.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions already.
I like that delayed processing of like, let me close some windows.
Yeah. Okay, so you may not have the answer to these questions, but some things that are coming up for me are gold plates, pieces of gold plates. Where did they find them? Was it like, oh yeah, the Smithsonian found it, and then he's like, oh yeah, that's the gold plates? Did he have them with him? Or did he find the pieces?
So he found them buried. And here's something to note. I do not necessarily discount that he dug up some golden plates. And here's why. He had previously been arrested for treasure hunting. This man likes to dig.
Okay, this unlocks an entire... That's the bridge to the gap. If he treasure hunted... Oh my God. Wow. This just keeps getting better. All right, that's all I needed. Okay,
there
continue.
You go. So, and that's why I'm saying I don't doubt that he really did find these plates.
Okay, great.
And it would seem that there was some sort of writing on them, but it wasn't the Book of Mormon, right? So if you ask believers what happened with this hat thing, It was divine revelation. This was God providing a way to translate an ancient record. If you ask anybody else, it raises some questions about authenticity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, for him and those who were believing what he was bringing to the table, it becomes a religion because the Book of Mormon is going to be published in 1830.
Okay.
And Smith goes ahead and organizes what became the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he continues to introduce new teachings and claims this ongoing revelation. And some of these revelations were a little bit spicy.
Okay.
Plural marriage, polygamy.
Mm-hmm. This not to be confused with polyamory.
Yes, not ethically non-monogamous, because I'll tell you right now, there was nothing ethical about what we're about to talk about.
No E&M, kitchen table poly up in here.
And I'm going to I will say as a more serious disclaimer and sort of content note, we are going to talk about what I would call exploitation of children.
Oh, wow. That's upsetting.
And I would say it is not outlandish for me to qualify this as sexual abuse of children.
Okay.
Nothing graphic by any means, but it's a topic and I find it distressing just that it exists as a topic. So
yeah, totally.
So Smith introduced the idea that God commanded certain men to take multiple wives.
Oh, yeah.
But this had to be a secret because it was illegal to do this.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to guess how many wives Joseph wound up with? Ballpark.
12.
30 to 40 plus. So let's get into this. Joseph and his first wife, Emma, his first real legal wife, Emma.
Wow.
Were talked about like they were the it couple. The way that I was reading about this is that they were basically Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift of Mormonism.
Okay.
Everyone was like, oh my gosh, I want to have what they have. She's, she had a specific name, but basically like she's the first woman of this church, right? And this is a big deal and that's so special and they love each other.
Gotcha.
Well, that's still how it's spoken about today in the Mormon church. And if you don't dig into this, and of course, if you're an active Mormon member, you are not allowed to dig into that. Why would you question that? On its face, it sounds like they're a monogamous, loving, very devout couple. But that is not the case. And again, I am not here to yuck anyone's polygamous yum, but I am here to bash groomers and predators because one of his youngest wives was 14 when they got married. And we'll get into this. So some of these marriages included very young women. Most of them were already married to other men. And at the time,
how does
Joseph,
that work?
I'll tell you step by step how it works.
Whew. Okay.
Joseph did this in secret by waiting until the men were basically away and sealing them together. And we're going to talk about sealing. But Smith reportedly framed this as necessary for exaltation or spiritual progression because threats are always a great way to, get someone on your side. He married a mother and her daughter.
I've seen this. Yes. Yep. This is a very common thing in
3 sets of sisters and his own foster daughters, plural.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
5 of the girls that he married were under his care in some way, whether they like worked in his home as like caretakers or if they were sort of fostered by him. So, very obvious power imbalances here, not to mention the fact that like this man is your ticket to heaven and an eternal family. So this is rooted in Doctrine and Covenants, section 132, which presents plural marriage as a divine command tied to eternal rewards. This is where belief, power, secrecy, control, all of these things really overlap in a way that feels uncomfortable even in the 1800s. Because again, it was illegal what he was doing.
Right.
Largely these girls and women were bribed because he promised them that, hey, if you marry me in secret, you have a one-way ticket to salvation. And as a bonus, if you marry me today, I'll toss in your household salvation too at no additional cost.
Oh my God. You know what this is making me think of? The fact that my great-grandmother, my granny, RIP, she was with us. She lived to be 104. I looked at when I was building our family tree, I found out she got married at 15 to a 21-year-old.
My grandmother. And look, they
Same.
were married for like 70 years.
Yes. Yeah, they were married for a long time. And it makes me think of the concept of like, oh, like women couldn't get houses, like they couldn't have property, they couldn't have a bank account, they couldn't have, right? Like that man is your access to eternity in some cases, in some Christian churches, and then also too just like access,
but also just like comfortable
to
living.
resources. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, and I'm glad that you're bringing this up because it's an important argument that's often made too, especially by Mormon followers, of like, it's not weird that he was in his 20s and 30s and had a 14 and 15-year-old wife because it was a different time.
Well, that time was fucking weird.
Well, and here's the thing, because again, I'm looking at this as like, yes, my grandmother got married at 15. My grandfather was older than her. But I would never look at my grandfather and go, he was a groomer, right? They had a beautiful, loving marriage. I got to witness it for myself. There was never anything weird there. I do not care about if it was a different time because none of that is relevant when what we're looking at is girls and women who did not want to marry this man.
Right.
And are being told that something terrible will happen one way or another if they do not go along with it and keep it a secret. So I don't care if it was a different time. I don't care if it's not weird that they were young or had an age gap or whatever. Put those things off of this argument regardless, because we have a much more obvious problem here that you can't argue away.
Right.
This was not consensual.
Baseline, they were being exploited.
Boom. So when I say that they married in secret, I really mean it, because there's actually a story about two sisters who we're going to talk about who married Joseph that didn't even know the other one is married to him. Yeah. So he loves to talk about these angels that come to see him, right? We've already heard about the first one. When this revelation happens, he claims that an angel threatened him with a flaming sword, and that if he didn't marry multiple women, this mean old angel was going to slay him.
Okay.
And so I'm sure somebody listening, maybe you, is wondering, but how did he get his wife to go along with this? Well, he didn't, because for most of this time happening, she had no idea it was happening. Later, she will be onboarded to this belief, again, through fear and threats. But as we're starting this sort of chronologically, she thinks that they are just two people married to only each other.
Yo, what? This is so much energy. This takes so much energy to keep this. Okay. That's wild. Okay. It's a full-time job.
Absolutely. And you have to remember that he has real pull to his believers because they view him as the second most important person to ever be on this planet, second only to Jesus.
That's wild.
Like I said toward the top, the Mormon Church has finally admitted that he did practice polygamy for years, but they denied it vehemently. But of course, many Mormons still refuse to believe it outright. And something that's even on their website now, where they have this tiny little footnote of like, some records say 30 to 40 wives, but it's hard to verify that. It's hard to verify that because it was illegal to have multiple wives. So obviously you're not going to be looking through marriage records of like, oh, and on this date they got married. Like, he wasn't.
There's no recording of it. Yeah.
No. So let's talk about sealing. Are you familiar with this? Okay. Smith introduced the idea that marriages do not just last until death do you part. They can last for eternity because you can be sealed together for eternity.
And how does one seal together for eternity, Heather?
So glad that you asked. Sealings are temple ordinances that bind families together eternally, or marriages and the families in turn. Now, in order to be sealed, you do have to have a temple recommend in order to do this.
Unless you gotta get that rec.
Gotta get that rec. Unless you're deceased, because a deceased person can like accept or reject it in the afterlife. And you can be sort of after the fact sealed. There's a lot there. I'm not even going to try to get into that because my eyes started to glaze over. But this is how men wind up with multiple wives, even in the afterlife, because they could have multiple women sealed to them, like that aren't even up there yet. It's a whole thing. Okay. Women who are never married are sealed to whomever they deem worthy in the afterlife, as well as men who are never married. So you're going to be sealed with somebody. It's like on Survivor, like just make an alliance. Just make some alliances.
Pick somebody.
Pick somebody. And in case anyone is going, what the hell is a temple recommend? A temple recommend is when the member of the church has a meeting with generally like their local leaders. And this could be like the bishop or multiple bishops or whoever is assigned to you in the church, sort of like a counselor. And they have to agree. And it's always men, by the way. But they have to agree that you're living up to church standards. So you're affirming your beliefs. You're conducting the standards that are appropriate. You're wearing your garments, right? You're doing the things that you're supposed to do. And we're not even going to get into garments and the, quote unquote, magic
it's
underwear.
Such a good topic too, because they just updated their garments. There was a new garment drop recently.
Garment drop.
And everybody was lined up outside. So good.
It's a collab with Skims. It's really exciting.
Pretty close, honestly. Not going to lie. But okay. Yeah. Anyway.
But basically, the way that I would sum up a temple recommend is it's like being on God's honor roll.
Ooh, okay. That's a great little analogy. All right.
Thank you. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
One of the more sort of theologically shocking ideas is that humans can eventually become like God. Like faithful followers could actually be exalted to godhood. And could potentially even create and rule their own worlds.
Brother,
like,
what?
It's like Peter Jackson stuff. This comes from Smith's later teachings, including the King Follett Discourse. Again, there's too much. We could have a whole podcast about Mormonism, but we're going to try to stick to wives. I'm just telling you some more things to just kind of give you an idea of who this man is. Not salacious as far as scandal goes, but interesting as far as his sort of ability to control lifestyle is that Smith revealed a health code prohibiting alcohol, tobacco, and, quote, hot drinks, interpreted as coffee and tea. And before you think, well, then I could have an iced latte or an iced tea. No, because eventually it was also like, no, if it's anything that could potentially be addictive, you can't have that. To which I would say, sir, isn't sex also addictive potentially?
Anything can be addictive.
Yeah. Anyway, what's notable is that this really becomes a marker of worthiness, right? And it ties everyday behavior, not just when you're in the temple, but to your spiritual standing. Are you checking the list to be good enough to be part of this?
Oh my God. This is wild.
Because Mormons do believe that you can achieve perfection. I mean, that's a very real thing. And so
okay, that actually makes everything a little bit more understandable as far as why Mormonism is so popular here specifically.
Well, and you see so much of this on like Mormon Talk, right? Of like everyone has the same perfect, bleach and tone
Ohio,
hair,
Utah curls,
the perfect filler, the perfect makeup, because you are trying to literally be perfect and then also act perfectly. So, so let's talk about Revelation and his revelation that eventually led to this polygamy. His authority was not about leadership. It wasn't like, okay, well, he says we're going to do this thing, and so we'll do it because he's in charge. It was prophetic, right? Like he is the prophet. If he's saying that God is telling him this, there is no question. Okay. There is no thought. That is God's message. When he was busted with a second wife, he used this to his advantage because he claimed that God told him it was celestial marriage. And because people believed everything that he told them, this didn't change. And I will include a link to a PDF called Remembering the Wives of Joseph Smith in case anyone wants to see the names and the chronological details here. Because there's a lot, and we're not going to get to all of them, but of course, all of them deserve to be known. But we're going to kind of hit some of the highlights. The first wife, like I said, is Emma Smith, right? They marry in 1827, and she's 22. Interesting to note here, Emma's parents did not support this marriage.
Wow. Okay.
They
Were
did
Emma's
not
parents...
believe that he was a prophet. They didn't buy any of his stuff at all.
Okay. But Emma did, supposedly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And her dad was actually super pissed because Joseph, surprise, surprise, didn't even ask for his permission.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And he also, like I mentioned, didn't like him because he has an arrest record.
What? Oh, for treasure hunting.
For treasure hunting.
Oh my God.
So he had been arrested for treasure digging, as it was called. And so to Emma's dad, he was just like a scoundrel. Like he was not good enough for his daughter. And he just didn't want this to happen. So they run off and they get married in secret. And that's going to be a theme.
So
for
even
him.
his first marriage was a secret.
Exactly.
So that's what marriage was to him.
Yes, in some way.
Wow. Okay.
And he actually, Emma's dad, he wrote in a letter that he would have rather followed his daughter to her grave than to her marriage. He would have rather she died than marry this man.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very strong statement.
So clearly not a fan.
Okay.
So next comes Fanny. And there is a major power imbalance here, the first of many that we will see.
Okay.
She worked in the home as a maid. Joseph at this time is about 27. She is between 16 to 18.
Okay.
They get married in 1833.
Okay.
And Emma does not know that they're married, but she does witness an indiscretion because she goes to the barn and finds them together. She's like looking between some boards. She wrote about this in a letter or in a journal. She peeks between some boards and could see them, quote, in a transaction.
Okay, I love that so much. A transaction. Not that it was happening, obviously, but just the words.
But this gets more potentially scandalous because there's another quote from one of the higher ups in the Mormon faith that, again, this is all in writing, like in journals, that says that Fanny was unable to hide the evidence of this celestial marriage. What does that sound like to you?
That she got pregnant?
That's what a lot of people think that it means, is that she was unable to hide a growing belly because she was pregnant from this affair. Quote, affair. That implies a lot of consent happening. But so Emma kicks Fanny out of the house. And obviously tongues are wagging because the community saw the maid as kind of a foster or adopted daughter of Joseph's.
Oh my God.
And it seemed very obvious that the affection wasn't paternal. But those tongues are not openly wagging in the Mormon circle, right? It's more outsiders
community.
To this place of like, that looks weird. But what's important to note here is that when Emma sends her off, she's not doing it as like a woman scorned. She sees it as protecting Fanny because she feels like this is inappropriate. It's kind of harmful to her reputation. And she's like, I just need to separate these two people and then I need to stand by my husband. And so that seems to be at least how it's perceived, is like she sent her away to kind of keep things on the up and up. So 1836 is when he receives this permission to seal. This is when the sealing thing happens.
This is the download that he gets.
This is the download he gets. And this is when he basically claims this magical power where he can join people together for eternity. And this is 3 years after his relationship with Fanny. So by his own admission here, and this is why liars are never good at lying. They think they are, but they're not. Because by his own admission, that means he was technically acting outside of permission from God. But it's hard to keep up with the lies, so whatever. There's a YouTuber that I'm going to cite for a lot of this, Alyssa Grenfell, who is fantastic. She's an ex-Mormon, and she has fantastic episodes on every aspect of Mormonism. Really, really good. Highly recommend. And she made a great video about his actual polygamous cult. And she makes a really good point that we already addressed, right? That a lot of Joseph apologists try to say, like, well, the age gap, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about the age gap. It was a different time. But again, at this point, he's in his 30s. The girl that he's with right now is 16. Like, get out of here. I don't care. It's still illegal one way or another. Even if they were the exact same age, you can't have multiple wives. So let's not forget, even if we take that off the table, we have a problem. Before we move forward, there is one major misconception I would like to clear up because most people associate Mormonism with where?
Utah.
Utah. Joseph Smith never made it to Utah. They were trying to establish Zion in Missouri, but it was not going very well. I'd allege it's mostly because of their approach, which was essentially to show up and say, God said we could own this land. And
that sounds familiar. Not gonna lie. maybe
surprise,
not the God part.
Well, and surprise, surprise, people were like, that's not how this works. And this isn't always even indigenous people. This is just like actual settlers that are like, you can't, what? You can't own this. So in 1838, Governor Boggs, the governor of Missouri at this time, actually issued what was called an extermination of the Mormons. So they had to leave. So they hop on over to what was at the time Commerce, Illinois, and they rename it Nauvoo.
This is just a bunch of hippies.
They rename it Nauvoo, which I believe was also a download that he received, and I think it may have been a Hebrew word that was supposed to be like beautiful place. And this is 1839.
Nauvoo sounds like a place that you would go in LA.
I think it sounds like something from Avatar.
Yeah, it does. Yes. Yep.
So would you like to take a guess at maybe some of the people that Joseph put in charge of Nauvoo?
Of Nauvoo.
Of pretty much everything that is a position in Nauvoo.
Himself.
You got it. Ding, ding, ding. He is the mayor of Nauvoo. He's the prophet of the church. He's the controller of all church assets. He's the editor of the paper. He's the justice of the peace. He's the lieutenant of the military. And he's a presidential candidate.
The only one.
That's a pretty full-time job, I would say. A lot going on.
This is a huge side rail. Do you know the comedian Chris Fleming?
Yeah.
There is this YouTube sketch that he does that's like 45 minutes long. Have you seen this? It's of him being a mayor of this town. And it's just like, he is so Chris Fleming delusional mayor of this town. And he's got all these like, he's just a wacky dude. I'll have to remember the name of it and tell you. But for some reason, as you're describing this, I'm just thinking about Chris Fleming riding around on a scooter, like in this like half delusion of like, I'm the man, like I'm
everything.
And everyone looks to him like, I can't think for myself. I don't know the answer to that question. Mayor, and 100%. he's the ruler of everything. He like makes all the decisions. That's what it made me think of.
Yes. I mean, that is it. And so, what could go wrong? And in case you're thinking like, well, but Nauvoo's probably only got like a handful of people. It's probably like a little community. 12,000 people lived in Nauvoo, which was close to Chicago numbers at this time.
Okay, so he just came in and said, what about the people who were already leaders there? Do we know anything about that? Like,
no, God said they could have Commerce, Illinois, so bye.
So everybody else is just like shit out of luck?
They got rid of them one way or another.
Oh,
yeah. Or,
God.
they decided to convert to Mormonism. But now this is his place. There's 12,000 people there. And this is when he's like, Mormonism's really popping off. I need to make some strong allies.
Okay.
Of the men.
Sure.
So he starts approaching.
I shall get closer to them by marrying their wives.
Close. Because he starts approaching the Mormon bros and is like, hey, go ahead and take multiple wives. I'm going to teach you the principle of polygamy. And
I bet all of the men had a huge issue with this and none of them did it. I bet that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, except the opposite, right? Because he explains that it's doctrine, that God's totally cool with it. He is cool with it. Celestial plural marriage is super dope. And also, by the way, I have multiple wives, so obviously it's okay if you do it. In fact, I'll even offer you up the wives of your choosing, as long as you stay in my inner circle and you don't cause me any problems or disagree with anything I say. So that means if Jim Bob over here is like, well, I think Jerry's like kind of beautiful, Joseph would be like, yours. And they're going to get married. And this is again where it's like, Cult 101, you guys are married now. I chose. You may be thinking, are there that many single women in Nauvoo? And the answer is no. Because Joseph starts going to men and saying, hey, I'm going to marry your wife. And one example of this is poor Heber C. Kimball. And when Joseph tells him he's going to marry his wife, he is distraught.
Oh.
And he fasts and he prays and he kind of mourns that this is going to happen. And he's just asking God, like, is this really your will? Like, you really want him to marry my wife? And finally, after days and days, he goes to Joseph and is like, okay, I'm okay with it. I've made peace with it. Joseph, being the absolute dickbag that he is, pulls an Uno reverse and says, it was just a test. I don't even want her. But now I know that you're loyal to me, and that's sick. So it inspires Heber clearly, because after he has kind of come to terms with this, he really moves on in a beautiful way, because he totals out at about 39 wives himself.
What a whiplash. I felt bad for this man, and then immediately was like,
he's so upset, and he's like, okay, you know what? Kind of awesome.
Joseph, matter of fact.
Well, and this is where it's like, okay, I've lost any respect or pity for you, Heber, because Joseph does go to Heber again eventually, and he requests his 14-year-old daughter, and this time it is not a test. This time he's like, no, for real. She's going to marry me. So in 1843, at the promise of salvation for her and her entire family, she marries Joseph, and she's sealed together with him. Tina Huntington, 20, marries Joseph in 1841. At this time, she's married to a man named Henry and is pregnant, like 6 months pregnant, very pregnant. And there's a little bit of history here that's important to note, because before she married Henry, Joseph already wanted her, because of course every woman is just an object to be acquired. Mm-hmm. And he had a hissy fit when they got married, refused to come to the wedding because God had promised her to him. And so after the marriage, I guess he gets himself together. And now, she's 6 months pregnant, and he comes to her and says, listen, flaming sword angels get Nancy. You need to marry me. So not quite 8 months into her marriage, and it's 6 months into her pregnancy, she is secretly sealed into marriage with Joseph. So her husband does not know.
What the hell?
1 year later, we have another wife, Miranda Johnson Hyde. She's 27. And she's currently married to a man named Orson Hyde. Joseph had previously been tarred and feathered for being inappropriate with a young girl in 1832.
You can survive that? I always thought you died if you got tarred and feathered.
No, you can, certainly. But it's also meant to just be incredibly shameful and embarrassing.
Oh, wow.
But would you like to take a little guess at who the young girl was that he was being inappropriate with?
The person he wound up marrying?
This girl, Miranda. So if you're trying to keep up chronologically, the tarring and feathering and inappropriate behavior predates Fanny. So it's a long time ago. Joseph continues to pursue Miranda the same way he did 10 years earlier. And he gets a revelation, because you had asked about this, of what are the husbands doing that they don't know?
Yeah.
He gets a revelation that Orson needs to go on a mission to Jerusalem.
Oh, Jesus.
So while he's away, Miranda has 2 kids and is living in squalor. And so Joseph has set this up perfectly, because like you were saying, without your husband, it's hard, to do anything.
He's going to come in and save her.
So he waltzes in and saves her from this life. And it is unclear if Orson ever found out that his wife got married while he was gone.
That's crazy. Do we know where this Joseph Smith got all of his money? Because if he has a housemaid...
From his followers.
Okay.
Because this is like classic Mormonism of also God wants me to have money.
And you're...
The Mormon church makes more money than Disney right now in real life.
Oh, I am... That's the part of Mormonism that I'm super familiar with, is that it's current association and integration with our country.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Beast.
It's, again, like Heather said, we could have an entire podcast dedicated to just Mormonism. But just as we're here, and I'll briefly state, the Mormon Church owns more property than any other entity in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to leave that there. This has nothing to do with to some degree, of all the wives. But I guess the way that this feels is, as I'm listening to you, that it feels like I'm developing this character, and he is wealthy.
Yeah. I mean, he's very well off, because he really doesn't have to want for anything, because if he needs anything, it's just like, hey, God wants this to happen, and they're not going to say no. So, I mean, whether it's actual liquid assets or just people at his beck and call, he's fine. So next up, we have Mary Rollins Lightner, who was 23 when they were sealed together. Her husband's name was Adam. She journaled and documented her life. So a lot of her story is actual firsthand accounting, whereas a lot of these other stories are people talking about what they know. Joseph told her at 12,
oh my God,
that God commanded him to take her for his wife. And he would sort of pop up in her life from time to time to remind her that they are going to be married, or else old fire sword over here would strike him down. So when they were finally sealed together, it was the same story where Joseph had just sent her husband off to get him out of town first. And she had prayed. She prayed a lot because she was conflicted. She just couldn't believe that God really wanted her to do this. And she was hoping to get some sort of answer that this was really his will, but she got no validation. And this to her was very distressing because she really needed validation. And to not receive it was like a crisis of faith in and of itself, as well as then this marriage happening.
Yeah.
Joseph's foster daughter, Lucy Walker, was 17 when they were sealed. Her mom had died, and Joseph had sent her dad on a mission. And these missions usually lasted a couple years. And that's how he wound up kind of being her foster parent. And once again, he told her that God commanded them to be wed. And if she refused, then she wouldn't be let into heaven. Not any of the 3 tiers. And if you're thinking, okay, well, what is marriage other than an idea? If they're not living together and they're not filing taxes together, like it's just sort of it's like a show. But that's not the extent, because it really meant that he could sleep with all of these women.
Oh, okay. I literally wrote down, what does marriage like mean or entail? So
it means we're allowed to have sex. Because of course Mormons can't do that outside of marriage. And so if he wants to sleep with all these people, here's the loophole. God told me we're supposed to get married. I'm actually supposed to have multiple wives. And then anyone I want to sleep with, they have to sleep with me. I'm their husband.
Oh my God.
One of the grosser things to remember is that when you're sealed, your family is sealed with you in eternity. So there is a world where she could have just been sealed to him as a daughter. He didn't have to seal her as his wife. And that's when it's very clear that like this was only about sex.
That's what this is for, right?
Yeah. Right. This is not God saying she needs to be part of your eternal family. This is him saying, I want to do that. And Lucy claims that she is just miserable. She says that she wanted to die. So make no mistake, there's nothing consensual happening here. There's barely even grooming here, really, because grooming would suggest that she almost thinks that she's like on board with it. That's not happening. She is like suicidal at this point because she just does not want to do this. At no time is there any indication that any of these women actually wanted to marry him other than his first wife, Emma. They are simply operating out of belief that if they say no, they will be kept in outer darkness forever and not let into heaven.
Yeah.
Or that he will be killed by this angel with the flaming sword.
And two, to some degree, you're also responsible, I would imagine in some cases, for your family, for you and your family.
100%.
So it's like also the guilt of being like, oh, if I don't marry this person, my whole family is not going to make it into heaven.
Yeah. He marries the Partridge sisters, who are 19 and 22 in 1843. They had moved into his house to take care of the kids and keep the house after their father died. Emily, the 19-year-old, was approached by Joseph, and he asked if she would take a letter from him. It's a pretty scandalous question to ask at this time.
Okay.
Would you take a letter from me and not tell anyone, and will you burn it after reading? And so obviously it's going to be kind of a spicy letter. And she feels that it is so inappropriate, that is sinful. I cannot do that. It's not appropriate at all. And so she says no. And his response is to punish her by not speaking to her for months. He makes her feel horrible since, he's the prophet. How dare you say no to me? And he wears her down, and eventually they're sealed as husband and wife and engaging in sex. And he's 37 at this time, and she's 19.
Wow. Okay.
Eliza, her sister, 22, was sealed 4 days later. And she also had a really hard time buying into this celestial marriage thing, but she finally goes along with it. And I mentioned earlier there was a set of sisters that didn't know they were married to him, and it's these girls, the Partridge sisters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because he needs to enforce his power in prophecy. Around the time of marrying the sisters, Joseph starts telling some of the men in his inner circle about a new revelation. And this is the endowment ceremony. 1800s Mormonism, the endowment ceremony was this sacred temple ritual, and it was considered a higher ordinance, something beyond standard worship, and it was meant only for committed members. So it's like, if you get an endowment, you are special, according to the prophet. So that's like ultimate goal, right?
Interesting.
So at its core, the ceremony was believed to prepare the participants to return to God's presence. It was going to give them sort of a download of spiritual knowledge and authority.
Okay.
And symbolically, it would kind of guide them through the plan of salvation. But it wasn't symbolic worship at its own. It was framed as essential for exaltation, which is the highest level of heaven in LDS belief. Because like I said, there are 3 levels. And only Joseph Smith has said that, well, he will be at the top. But now he's kind of saying, like, you could get pretty close to me, though, if I pick you for this special thing. So what does this ceremony look like? There is ritual washing and anointing.
Okay.
Which was more literal in the 1840s than it is today. So like water and oil were applied to the whole body. Blessings were pronounced over different parts of the body. And the rituals were meant to like cleanse and prepare you physically. Sacred garments. You know, we love our garments. Participants received a special undergarment. This is often called the temple garment. It's seen as a symbol of covenants with God. It also offers spiritual protection. There's also some instruction happening through symbolic drama, because this man loves a show, I think. Participants were taught signs, tokens, keywords, and all of these things were going to be necessary to pass through heaven's veil after death. It's like the speakeasy of heaven.
I was literally going to say that. I'm like, oh, you got to know the password to get through the door.
Know the password. And you, of course, had to make covenants, including obedience to God, sacrifice, moral purity, which is laughable at this point.
Yeah.
And loyalty to the church. And in the 1800s, these covenants were a little bit more intense in their wording than modern versions are. It's also, I think now, and Tiffany may be screaming at me through the speakers when I say this, but I think now to get a temple endowment, it's really just like as long as you're in good standing, whereas then it was like uber special.
Okay.
And there were penalties. So this is one of the more controversial aspects, because early versions included symbolic penalties for breaking covenants, and these involved gestures referencing death. So there wasn't actual harm, but it was symbolic. These were removed from ceremony in 1990. I do not know what they included. Yeah, but they were taken out in 1990 because the church was like, maybe going too hard there.
Okay, interesting.
The endowment was only performed in temples, like the early Nauvoo temple. It was restricted to members that were deemed worthy. And because of this, not surprisingly, outsiders saw it as kind of cult-like, even in the 19th century, when details were kind of leaking through, especially from former members. Because there were people defecting. I mean, there were people that were like, this is starting to go somewhere I didn't expect it to go. I think I'm out.
Yeah.
Women were going to be receiving this endowment. And when he introduced it, he wanted Emma, his OG wife, the only like legal wife, to be the first to get it, which would have made her the elect lady. Because she would be able to basically bestow this onto other women. It sounds like Reiki to me. She really wanted this.
So when she went through endowment, she then would be able to
bestow it onto other people.
Bestow endowment onto other people. It's like an MLM.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Well, Joseph said, I really want this to be you. I want you to be the elect lady. It makes sense. You're my wife, but I can't do it until you agree to let me be a polygamist. God will not let me bestow this to you until you agree. And remember, at this time, she has no idea that he already has 20 plus other wives. And so she's upset and she doesn't love it. But eventually she says, okay.
He's like the king of manufactured consent.
Oh, 100%, because this is where it gets really sad, because she thinks that she has some sort of control, because she comes back with an ultimatum and she says, I will let you do this. I will let you practice polygamy, but I get to choose who you take as a bride. I get to pick. She winds up choosing the Partridge sisters. She does not know that these two women are already married to her husband. And the assumption is probably that she chose them because they already lived under her roof. And so maybe she was thinking, like, I'll have some control over what's happening or not happening. I've got eyes on them.
Right.
You know, maybe I can supervise what's happening. So to keep up the charade, they get remarried to Joseph in front of Emma.
Oh, God.
And so 1 week later, Emma gets to do her endowment ceremony. There are more sisters, but for the sake of time, I'm going to skip ahead because the cycle of how they wed is rinse and repeat. Absent or dead parent, they're brought into the home, they're sealed. So now that it's out in the open, now that he has 3 wives, right, quote unquote, he's got over 20 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But now that he's got multiple wives, some of the church is not vibing with this because it is, let me say it again, illegal to have multiple wives, even if God is saying it's chill. And so William Law, who was in the first presidency, so like the upper echelon of Mormonism, pleads with Joseph to knock it off. He's like, hey, I really don't love this. Some other members don't love this. Can we not? And once again, we see Joseph unable to have any kind of disagreement, and he kicks him out of the presidency. But William is not done. He sues Joseph for living in an open extramarital state with women who were not his wife. And William is going to wind up publishing a very big story about Joseph in the Nauvoo Expository, which is going to be monumental.
Okay. Oh my God.
So a handful of ex-Mormons collaborated on this issue, and it would be the first and last issue of this paper. All of these ex-Mormons wanted to expose him and all of those in his little inner circle who are practicing polygamy. And these men honestly did such a great job because they really put the women at the front of the story to show them as victims, which, I mean, you have to think in 1844 is like pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted it to be very clear that like they are not compliant in this, right? Joseph is forcing polygamy on them. And so June 7th, 1844 is when this issue comes out.
Okay.
Joseph Smith flips the fuck out.
I'm sure he did.
Nauvoo City Council, led by Joseph, orders the press to be destroyed. And so his militia, led by him, destroys the press.
All I'm saying.
I know.
Sounds familiar.
I know.
Continue, please.
But those outside of Nauvoo are like, okay, shit is too crazy over there. And now we're going to have to get involved because they can't just destroy this. That's very uncool. He needs to be punished. I think we're going to have to step in.
Okay.
So because these other towns, these other people are starting to kind of encroach to say, you got to act right, he declares martial law. And he gets his militia to protect him. But you can't do that. And so he's charged with treason. Things are escalating very quickly.
Things are escalating very quickly.
So that decision just sets off a chain reaction. So when he's charged with treason, he's arrested and taken to Carthage jail. And this is because he can't be imprisoned and tried in Nauvoo because obviously everyone there except the handful of ex-Mormons are going to be on his side.
Right.
So on June 27th, 1844, a mob storms the jail because they want to take justice into their own hands because they're just like disgusted at this. Joseph attempts to escape. He falls through a window. As he's falling, he is shot and killed.
What?
I did not know that until I did these notes.
A marksman and a half. Are you kidding me? Shooting a person and killing them as they're falling out of a window is wild.
From the time of publication, June 7th, when they published this
1844,
to the day he dies, 20 days have passed.
Whoa, that escalated fast.
Fast. So the man at the center of all of this, the one claiming direct revelation from God, is gone. And what's left behind is movement without a clear path forward. And that's when Brigham Young steps in.
Oh.
Now, we are going to talk about him next week.
Okay, great.
But after a period of confusion and competing claims to leadership, Young does take control of a large portion of the followers, and he does something drastic. he takes them west. Thousands of people leave Nauvoo and begin the massive, grueling journey across the country.
To Utah.
And it is a very like Oregon Trail. Because they're facing disease, they're facing starvation, extreme weather, all of it. And eventually they do arrive in the Salt Lake Valley. At this time, it was not part of the United States yet. It was remote and isolated, which was perfect. And when people think of Utah at the center of Mormonism, this is not Joseph Smith's story. That's Brigham Young's story. And it came after the violence and the collapse and after everything had changed. So he wasn't the founder, but he's the one that ensured it survived. And hold on. So that's what makes it, that's what determines that they're going to settle in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is my second favorite Housewives franchise filming location. And now here's when things shift. He was not just a religious leader. He kind of took a note from Smith, right? And became the territorial governor. He holds political power, social power, spiritual authority. So tensions are already high. Their founder has just been murdered by a mob. They've been forced out of multiple states. They are not operating from a place of safety. They're operating from a place of survival.
Yeah.
Which is why, for anyone that does watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake, this is why he had bodyguards that some of those girls were like related to, because he needed them. It was dangerous to be the leader of Mormonism at this time. And at one point, and what we're going to talk about next week, is that tensions escalate into what's known as the Utah War.
What? Okay.
When federal troops are sent to Utah over fears of rebellion. So we're going to get into this and way more in my next episode in a couple weeks, where we talk about Brigham Young and his continuation of what Joseph started.
Wow, Heather, this is so good. I'm so excited to hear the rest of this.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. No wonder you felt so pulled in different directions. There's just so many ways that this can be.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, well, I'll talk about like how sort of bizarre some of this foundational stuff is. And I was like, ooh.
Wait a second. Yeah.
30 to 40 wives, and some of them are children and his children. And we're going to pause here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is fantastic. I've never, for as many Mormon documentaries as I've watched and as all the things that I've read and looked at, I did not know a lot of this. So.
Yeah, and that's by design. Do not forget. So, I mean, there is evidence out there. There is proof out there. And I mean, again, their website does mention it, but it's very like, you know, he had multiple wives, so we don't
brush
really
it right under. Yeah.
It's no big deal. And it's like, no, this was very upsetting.
You may have heard about this thing.
Yeah. Okay. We're different now.
Yeah, things are different now. Things are different now.
Yeah.
Things are different now. That's true. Well, oh my gosh, so exciting. All right, well, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.